Humans are wired for social connection. It's key to our survival.
You look lonely.
You and I are in the loneliest generation.
This week, I discovered a terrible Earth disease called loneliness.
Americans are lonelier than ever.
But I'm so lonely.
And it can't get any lonelier than this.
No one prepares you for the loneliness that you feel in your 20s.
It's like you feel like nobody has you.
To feel lonely.
Loneliness.
Lonely.
Talking about loneliness.
People are talking a lot about our loneliness epidemic, and all the stats and studies about how this affects our health are troubling, but hear me out. I don't think we're talking enough about isolation. I'm not referring to hermits, hikikomori, or mental health struggles, but unwilling isolation. The physical separation of humans from each other. It's easy to blame technology or culture or kids these days, but I think it goes deeper than that. So I wanted to figure this out, and like you, I began on YouTube. All right, so a few things have become pretty clear. Sociologists and psychologists widely agree that humans are social creatures, or at the very least, we naturally form tribes. And it seems like the common diagnosis nowadays for loneliness as it relates to young people is that we are addicted to our phones. Kids don't go outside these days. Our dopamine receptors are whack. We get it. But what if it's not just our social media addictions that are making us lonely? What if this trend of staying inside on our phones and online is the result of a larger, more pervasive and sneaky separation of humans from our communities? I had to get offline for a bit, so I picked up some books suggested by friends and coworkers, and Sierra started some research on her own as well. Full transparency, our MO at Strong Towns is placemaking and design patterns, so my focus here is definitely influenced by this. In his book, Bowling Alone, Robert Putnam points to the modern erosion of one of our most important social metrics, social capital. This is essentially all the networks that make collaboration among individuals more effective. Putnam suggests that this decline, beginning after its peak in the 1950s, might be due to these reasons: demographic changes, work and economic pressures, technology and media, generational change, and suburbanization. We don't have much to say about the first four of these, but we can speak on the last one. Putnam suggests that the move to suburban areas often isolates individuals and makes community engagement more challenging. With an ever-increasing handbook full of laws that restrict how we build our cities, we stop working together to create our places. Our eroding trust in each other led us to prioritize private and family life over the village, and we design subdivisions that physically bar ourselves off from each other. So why did we do this, and what do we do about it? We need to start with some context. Things weren't always this way. Putnam refers to Alexis de Tocqueville's observations when describing the early United States social foundation. He says that it was the Americans' propensity for civic association that most impressed Tocqueville as the key to their unprecedented ability to make democracy work. Our ability to create associations with each other wasn't dependent on using meetup.com. Our cities used to have amenities interconnected throughout them, so that instead of having to drive to Walmart, people were able to walk to a corner store in their neighborhood. Many could easily stroll downtown or to public hangout spots where they'd have chance encounters. There were places that kids just knew they could walk to, like parks, ice cream shops, or even just meeting up in the street to play games. In his 1999 book, The Great Good Place, Ray Oldenburg suggests that these chance encounters, where we could build social capital, often happen in what he calls third places. These are places beyond home, work, and school where you can spend time relaxing, connecting, and feeling a sense of belonging. They have a low bar to entry to get into. In other words, it's a free or low-cost place, nothing more expensive than getting a coffee. These aren't a new phenomenon. They can be found in the Greek agora, the Roman bathhouse, the Chinese tea house, or the French salon. I know in Chicago, a good example of this would be the lakefront, where at any point on a nice late spring and summer day, I can find tons of people hanging out, playing spike ball, having picnics, tanning, and just enjoying each other's company. And I often run into friends from high school or from college who ended up landing in Chicago. This is my favorite Chicago amenity. It belongs to everyone, and we pride ourselves in that. In other places I've lived, and for most new developments in the United States, parks are oriented around children and dogs, and I have neither, so it's kind of weird for me to hang out in those places. While coffee shops and bars exist, sometimes I don't want to spend money to exist comfortably with other people. I came across this video called Why Our Third Places Are Vanishing by Rachel Leonardo. Her channel is criminally underrated. You should check it out. We've worked together before, And I knew that she was a person who I could talk to about good social infrastructure and what it actually looks like. So we took Ray Oldenburg's 8 categories of what makes a good third place and boiled them down to 3 simpler ones. I'll skip to our recap. 1, it's a community living room. 2, it's accessible and inclusive. And 3, it's like a place to play and chat. Do you feel like where you're at in Pamplona, that is a thing that exists?
100%. There's like no doubt in my mind that I think that we could find a couple places that best represent that idea.
This video by Flurf Design called Why Kids Don't Go Outside Anymore was really eye-opening. He does a great job of putting words to the problem, and he had me thinking about my own childhood. As a kid growing up in what we would call like a pre-World War II streetcar suburb, I couldn't relate. I had plenty of third places, including a plethora of parks. After middle school, hordes of us would hang out, play sports, socialize, climb trees, and just be kids. If friends were hanging out on a summer day with no plans, we would often just ride our bikes to downtown Elmhurst, where we'd surely run into friends and acquaintances without fear of being kicked out for loitering. In this way, I sometimes find myself relating to older generations describing their childhood more than younger ones who grew up in modern, what we call suburban experiment suburbs. Take this from Tom, a Strong Towns member who wrote a story for us about his hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania.
It was the height of the baby boom. You couldn't turn.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon.
Does anybody have any thoughts from that video? Yeah. Bike all over. Yeah, I mean, I would say so too, and I mean, I do think that, especially for kids here, that's something that we should aspire to for kids here, but also for people here, right? To provide opportunities for people to engage with each other, right? I mean, fundamentally, that's what we're trying to do, it seems to me, as a city. That are there any more thoughts about that? I mean, would you fundamentally agree with that idea that that's like part of the key thing of what we're trying to do here? Yeah. Make it more livable. Make it more livable. Make places for people to engage with each other, right? And do stuff. I mean, that's one reason I love the trolley. The trolley, like, kids can hop on that thing and all of a sudden their mobility is so much greater than just staying at home, you know, or whatever. Inspiration garden. Yeah. Oh yeah, our inspiration garden. Yeah, later in the video, it talks to a lady who grew up in sort of suburban growing up, and she made the point that for every sort of outing that she wanted to go on, she had to have somebody drive her, and so if she couldn't get a ride, she couldn't go, and so that like limits the degree to which you can engage with the world around you or your friends or whatever that might be. And it seems to me that the more that we're enabling people to be able to get to things and enjoy things, I think the better. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I say, I've been thinking about social capital quite a bit. I've read, I won't say all of it. I read the introduction and the conclusion, Bowling Alone, this summer, and because it's a massive book, but it's really good. And you know, another book that he showed up there was Palaces for the People, which talks a little bit about like libraries and how important libraries are to communities, and I really do think that things like, you know, events and places like the library or places like the trolley are just so important for what independence is. So yeah. I guess that's why I wanted to show that video.
It's kind of like the central damage plan.
Yeah.
The mission.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, trying to create something there.
Especially if you put a citywide rec center there.
Yeah. Exactly.
An indoor courts.
That's what you're training.
Well, I like, you know, they are awesome, which they built in, we lived there in '89, and it was, the sound was about 35,000 people, and this is their new thing. And they added on to it in the mid-teens, but everybody went. And it was a safe place, you could drop your kids out to play a basketball game or go swimming or whatever. I mean, I didn't even, they weren't swimming and stuff around. But I mean, it was a place that kids and teenagers could go and exercise, talk with others.
Hang out with friends.
Yeah.
Save time out of trouble.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
And it was, the senior center was connected to it, so there was a lot going on. They had a couple big meeting rooms, so they always had things going on.
Maybe there's a grant out there.
Yeah.
For a pool for people.
Probably expensive.
Probably expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the gathering places, the events that we have to enjoy outdoor. But I think a lot of it is hampered by the rainy season.
Well, and I love them, and I get through in the winter, so I want to have an indoor place with them.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point that I mean, the amount of space to do stuff like that completely contracts when it starts raining. Like, I mean, because so much of what it's done is outside, you know, with the park and whatnot. But I mean, like things like Gilgamesh's outdoor place, I mean, that's a very, very cool covered space. So, yeah.
Sometimes, you know, kids often don't have a lot of money, so that isn't a place where they might go.
Exactly. But things like the gate, I mean, you know, the gate is a great place for kids to be able to get into. So for cheap, I mean, there's no cost for entry to that. Yeah, so. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I got.
Well, anything else we need to discuss? Oh, I do want to ask a question about the temporary crosswalks. Two of them have been.
Yes, okay, so I did want to talk about that. So the temporary crosswalks were temporary, they were for 1 month. Well, the very cool thing about it is we finally got them disassembled completely today. So all 3 of them are gone now. We did, as part of that project, count for 1 day just to see the utilization. It was on a Wednesday. During school, and amazingly, at those crosswalks, we saw 724 people cross on that day.
All three combined.
All 3 combined. Though the middle one by far had the most, that's the school one is a common one, but like 600 and I'll say, I mean, it must be like 642 kids crossed that in 1 day, which shows, and to my mind, it shows that needs to be a better crossing right there. Like, even taking it down, I realized, man, even with the cones out there, it felt so much better. Like, just the cones made it feel so much better, like, removing them is like, it was striking to me, how much different it felt without the cones after having the cones there. The one down by 17th had something like 64 people cross it. In 1 day, which is still amazing. I mean, that's like 3 people an hour. Which for something that wasn't there before is pretty remarkable. And the one at 13th, the one closest to your place, Corby, only had something like 24 folks, but of the 3, that was the one that I kind of had the feeling would have the least crossings at it. But we do know that folks down there want a crossing because they painted their own crossing in the road. Yeah, so from my perspective, it was an absolute success.
It also would be nice to have one there just because of the stops for the trolley, so people can safely cross the street.
There's no doubt, just as an example, like. We know that even with the crossing, cause I say we know because I saw it, right? At the 17th one, people still crossed out there, but not at the stop, or necessarily. I was on the trolley one day and I saw two girls just cross the 3 lanes of traffic in front of the trolley to catch the trolley. I thought, that is crazy. That's very, very dangerous. So we know that the trolley. People cross to get to the trolley too, and yeah, we tried to position the stops in such a way that they could serve things like that. So yeah, I would say it was an absolute success. We would probably tweak the locations just a little bit if we do.
Are they gonna paint out? Because what they've done at the 17th one and the 13th Street one, in the center, they painted out their.
Yeah, we blacked them out completely,
So all the way across it.
all the way across. That was what we did today. Originally, my hope was that the paint would be.
Unless it's like, it's still a crosswalk, because you see these big black squares.
Well, I know, it's like, it's perfect for Halloween, right? I call it, it goes crosswalk. Yeah,
Just a question though, so the crosswalks that were on 13. Was there an effort to be able to do like a survey with any of the local residents, the immediate residents, to see like the likelihood of using it? Because I know there's a mobile park, right?
Yeah.
right.
So would there be like an effort to reach out to them and, if they knew that crosswalk would be permanent, if they would have more likelihood to use it or use the trolley?
Right, we didn't do anything like that. What we did do was we had just essentially a paper by the crosswalk that people could, if they had thoughts about it, they could email and share their thoughts. We also did talk to some folks out there. For the most part, the feedback that we heard was remarkably positive. Some folks who had their access kind of impacted, they didn't like it as much. And we understand that. We tried to accommodate as we were going along. One thing that oh shoot, I just forgot what I was gonna say.
It's worse the older you get, but.
I know.
Well, if with the implementation of the central townage plan,
Yeah,
will the 13th one and 12th or 17th come back?
yeah, that's the goal, is we wanted to see if indeed people would cross if we did it. And yeah, people crossed. Even today, as I was removing, I just, I'm standing out, so a guy crosses as we're finishing paint, he crosses right there, he says, what's the deal with it? Like, what's going on here, oh, we're removing this crosswalk, it's only temporary, all this sort of stuff. He says, I just want to tell you, I really enjoyed it, hearing all this sort of stuff. And he walks away, then he comes back and he starts talking to me in the middle of the road about ways to improve the everything. And I just thought, man, isn't that a really neat thing? Because that wasn't there before. Standing in that place in the middle of the road, I would not have been anything that would have ever happened, and here we are stuck in the middle of the road. With like a completely disassembled crosswalk and a couple of cones still up. And having a conversation about it, I just that's a really neat thing. Yeah, I mean,
Do you have an orange safety vest on?
I did have an orange safety vest on,
Safety
yeah.
first. You did.
Yeah, safety is no accident.
Well, hopefully, because the day they were paying, that's when I had my granddaughters with us, so we're driving, yeah, right, we're gonna get this thing. And they had those like outside other things, I thought, well, this must be where the curbing goes.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, so then the other day, so I was peeing out, I go, well, is that like a preliminary stop or step before they pour concrete on there, make these things, but then Terrible wife goes, well, I think they're taking these things out.
Yeah, so yeah, it was a temporary thing, and I mean, yeah, no.
Well,
So
the crosswalk in front of the high school goes over to the gate, that, you didn't paint those out.
we kept that's called continental striping, we kept the continental striping just because it's more visible. So, I mean, normally it's just two thermoplastic lines, and we thought. Keeping the, I mean, those two horizontal lines will stay there, just keeping the continental crosswalk makes sense. Just to improve visibility until it's.
And I think it was like the second or third day of school, we went out during lunchtime, it was like 11, just about when the central was getting out lunch. And there was a crossing guy, and it's the school district considered this new crosswalk thing, but there is a guy there.
There is a guy there,
Yeah, so,
yeah,
because I thought if there isn't a crossing guy, there's gonna be a couple of kids and then a couple of kids. And
that's true.
kids
I mean,
running, at least that guy corrals them, usually it's about 5, 6, 7 kids. Then he goes out and stops traffic, because I think one day traffic was backed up to where coming this way.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I went to the gate lunch last Tuesday because they do a lunch for the high school students. There was 248 kids at that lunch, so 248 going one way across means 248 going the other way across, and so I mean, that's 500 crossings right there. That's a dang lot of crossings at that spot. And that was just, I mean, that was 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes in the center of the day, which is just, it's crazy. So, I mean, yeah, and I mean, fundamentally, like, right now, again, there's only a crosswalk at 7th and Gun Club, right? And then 16th to the S curves, right? That is too few for an area that we want to be a nice place for folks to get to, right? As part of the central Talmadge plan, we were talking with folks who said, yeah, I can't remember, my family member lives across that street. Oh, how do you get to their house? Oh, we drive. You know, it's like probably a 3-block walk. No, we drive because that's the safest way. So, yeah, so yeah, that's, and thanks for bringing it up, Courtney, because I had planned to mention that because I know that you folks were interested in that.
That's true. Yeah, because we had the girls in the last week of August, we took our downtown to get ice cream. Down here, then we just caught the trolley down here and whatever. Had ice cream again in Monmouth. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I will just say one more thing. I mean, this was the first time ODOT has done anything like this in this region. It was like a big deal for them to do it, and I'm super thankful that we could do it, and from my perspective, it was a complete success.
And the fact that ODOT was easy to work with.
Yeah, and I mean, ODOT was very helpful throughout the process. Another amazing thing, just to note too, is those cones were in the middle of that road. I drove by that just about every day, twice a day. Just to see how the cones were looking and all that sort of stuff. And that entire time, I only picked up one cone. That's crazy. I mean, that just seems so crazy. I think putting out the cones, a lot of people thought they're gonna be picking those up all the time, right? I picked up one.
We're picking them up down the street, remember, the little electric scooters were hanging around. And you'd find them all over the place.
Yeah.
No,
Anyone else have any?
no, I think, no more questions, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Somebody?
All those in favor?
I
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.